what I definitely want to touch on, we've talked a lot about a lot of great aspects of Minerva. I think it is a great institution. I also think that there are flaws and limitations, not just of Minerva, but of every institution. I love talking about those on each episode. I have honestly a decently long list myself. Any major flaws or limitations or drawbacks of Minerva, of your entire experience?
Yeah, it's definitely not for every profession. I'd say it's very tech oriented just because of the nature of her classes too. It's really hard to do lab and find lab time. That's what you want to be, like, you want to be a scientist, probably don't go to Minerva. If you want to be a doctor, probably don't go to Minerva. If you want to do like civil engineering or something that requires like a professional certification, probably don't go to Minerva. So there's a lot of limitations to like what careers are good and bad there. I'd also say because it's so new, there isn't a ton of alumni like other universities have. And so professionally, like, the professional development team at Minerva, like I think they do a great job with what they have. But the fact is, they just don't have a lot of resources. They don't have a lot of alumni to tap into. Other universities, like they have a whole list of like different companies and that alumni are part of that people can get referred to. Here, we don't have that yet, right? Because we're so new. A lot of companies have never heard of Minerva. And so when you put Minerva University on your application, I think for us, getting past the resume screen is harder than if you go to like Harvard or Stanford or something, right? That being said, I think we do really well in interviews. I think if you're able to get past the resume screening, Minervans tend to do very well in interviews because basically what you went to Minerva for is like a story, right? Like you have a super interesting story that people want to listen to. So if you're able to tell that story, you have the opportunity to tell that story, that's when people are like, oh, this person is special. Even if you're like not the greatest Minerva student, like at the end of the day, when you leave Minerva, you leave with a story, which I think is more powerful nowadays than just like a good name on your resume, right? Like it's really about the skills and experience that you have, which Minerva teaches you and gives you through the different moving around to different cities and stuff. I'd also say, yes, you miss out on the typical college experience. We don't have sororities or fraternities. We don't have parties really. I mean, like we do a little bit, but not to the extent that other colleges do, just because there's no space to. And also, like, you're trying to adult too. It's hard. You don't have very much time. I'd also say in terms of like after Minerva, like some things I had trouble with was like you definitely get antsy after being in one place for a couple months because you're like, I want to move. You show your body so used to. We talked about it earlier. So it takes some getting used to of like being in one place again for a while. We're too used to pursuing novelty over nuance. That's often something that, like, I know some people who are like, okay, like Minervans think they're all like, all everything. But it's really because, Minervans are too, I feel like sometimes too used to seeking novelty. Sometimes you miss out on nuance. I'd also say that your reality is somewhat warped. Like, yes, you're traveling around the world, but you still are kind of in a bubble too with Minervans. Minervans are very smart people. They are very curious people. And you're not going to find that outside, just like in the regular world, like there's not as many people who are like that. There definitely are, not saying that there aren't, but it's more rare to find. So I think adjusting to reality of like the general population is not as curious or interested in what you have to say and in the world. Like conversations are just not as rich. It can be, but it's rare. It's more rare to find.
Awesome. I think we've covered a lot of ground. This has been a very non academic, more fun conversation. I also really enjoyed hearing some personal anecdotes and stories. I'm hoping people are more inspired to at least check out the website and check out further details about Minerva. Go and watch Lillian's episode to hear more about the academic side, maybe the more serious side of Minerva, because Minerva definitely isn't like a 4 year vacation. It's very academic. If I were to fast forward in time, 2 to 3 years from today, you're making a big shift in your life already, Toronto to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Personally, do you see yourself in a similar path, or do you feel like there's a pivot that's coming up within 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, so I do like to think of my life in like 5 year increments. So when I graduated, started the next like 5 year increment, and these 5 years have really been about like developing. So developing my skills, my habits. I am moving to SF, as I mentioned, on Friday this week. I'm hoping that in 2 to 3 years I'll still be there. I do want to be in one place for a little bit longer and like dive into that nuance or novelty and just develop my community is like the theme of my next year. And then after that, in 2 to 3 years, when the next 5 year life phase starts, like that phase is going to be really about impact. So thinking about how I can take the skills and habits I've now formed, the community I've formed to really make a difference. So I see these 5 years after Minerva as being just like learning a lot. And then next 5 years is going to be rethinking about like where I'm making impact, how I make impact. That might be a career switch. That might be doing something on the side. I don't know yet. That's kind of still far in the future, but that's general direction where I want to be.
Awesome. We will jump into the fast fire round of questions. I don't even have to explain this to you because I literally got the fast fire round of questions idea. So I will jump right in. Let's start with your favorite rotation city.
Seoul.
Okay, one reason why.
One reason why COVID did not happen, and it was a fun time to explore a different culture and very different city. Also, I love the food.
Your favorite Minerva tradition, and again, if you could define it in like one sentence.
Yeah, Friendsgiving. So at the time, it's basically Thanksgiving, but with your friends. We all cook for each other, and it's a good community building thing. We do it now with alumni as well.
Awesome. Number 3, we've talked about HCs at length with Lillian. I'm hoping someone has the contact. But here I'm going to ask for your favorite HC. And again, if you could just define the HC.
Yeah, my favorite HC, I would say is, there's 2 that I like. Can I give 2? I'll do 2 really quickly. One is Right Problem, because I think people don't spend enough time characterizing a problem. They just try to find solutions, but if you don't work on characterizing the problem first, then you're going to find a solution that doesn't actually fit what you're looking for, the actual need. So I love that one. Also emergent properties, because I just find it really fascinating that we can, the whole grid and sum of its individual parts. And I think that's a really cool thing to think about in our world today.
2 more. One thing you'd change about Minerva University if tomorrow, like you were president of Minerva, any one thing you think should be better?
More community space. As someone who's really interested in how space brings together people, I'm like, our res halls are not made for community gathering. It's happened in Seoul. Seoul has a good res hall with like good common space, but there's not enough common space for students to actually mingle and like be able to host events together and be able to talk to each other. And yes, I'm not talking about having a huge campus, but like just having a space, like a common space where we can hang out would be great.
Lastly, the most challenging aspect of actually being a Minerva during the 4 years in 7 cities.
I think I was just constantly tired. Trying to balance everything, balancing your school, your friends, your exploring the different cities and not feeling FOMO. That was definitely very tiring.
There's definitely a lot of FOMO because one group is going hiking, the other group is going to a different city, the other group is applying for software engineering internships. And so it's sort of like, what do I even do? That's very real because Minervans are absolutely work hard, play hard people.
Oh, for sure.
And that's true. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. And I hope you feel more energized, inspired, and curious for the exciting university journey that lies ahead. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Uni Unveiled.